is Mike Connor. I'm a principal in a company called K.I.S.S. My partner David is over there at the video camera. And we define ourselves as an Agile business acceleration agency. Our focus is principally on business-to-business oriented companies. And we do three things for those companies. We basically provide training focused on product management, product marketing, business development, those kinds of things. And we also work with companies to transform the organizations within them that are responsible for those functions. And then we also provide resources in augmentation, staff augmentation, and those kind of things. So my background and how I started to become involved with the customer journey started a long time ago in a distant galaxy when I worked for Apple. You'll hear some of the stories in there. But most recently, so I started life as a product manager, product marketing person at Apple. Since then, I've done sales, I've done business development, I've done market development. And it wasn't until I really started to get out in the world of sales that I really started to appreciate all the things that salespeople told me over time about how much marketing was missing the mark. Because I was out there in those customers' organizations, working with them and seeing what was actually working and what wasn't, and what the customers are struggling with, that we weren't really addressing as a company from our marketing standpoint. And so that's kind of what led me to the world of the customer journey. So for those of you who want a really short version of this because you want to get out and get something for lunch, this is the short version. So bottom line is we really do have to address the customer journey and work with it. It takes real vision and commitment to that vision to create an insanely great one. It really is all about the customer, and you really have to work with it from that perspective. It is really about outcome-based metrics. We were talking about this in your class. It's not like the activities that we're doing, but what is the business result that we're producing? That's what we need to measure to build these things. And also in your conversation, you talked about Agile. Given the complexity of this and given how fast everything is changing, you have to do it with an Agile approach. I don't think there's any other way to do it. The other thing you talked about in your presentation was validate the value, right? Are you creating value and measuring that contribution in everything you're doing? And then start over again. There's not going to be an end to this. It's a continual effort. So that's the short version. Anybody wants to leave now? They can. Okay. So we focus, as I said, primarily in the world of business-to-business marketing. And we just saw this come through from Forrester, which is their #1 imperative for CMOs, Chief Marketing Officers, in the B2B space, aligns directly with what we're doing here. So, map the buyer's journey, make sure that you're really using well-informed personas in that work. Make sure that you're using the tools out there to gather information and insight analytically, and then really make sure you're fostering and working with in a collaborative setting with the teams that are responsible for this. What's it going to be like in 2013 as a marketing person? So I want to see your hands go up, for the next slide. So how many people think marketing is going to be like that in 2013? Okay.
What is that?
Yeah,
Awesome.
I don't understand.
And then, how many people think it's going to be more like that? Hands? Okay, that's kind of what we think it's going to look like as well. So why is that? First of all, there's a lot of work that needs to get done, particularly as marketing is starting to evolve and really take a very content-oriented focus to it. What's going on in the world of social media is changing dramatically, almost daily. Staying on top of that, very tough. And then there's all the technology that's now available for us to use as marketing people and to put to work for us. And it's huge, and it's moving fast. And so trying to stay on top of that, very difficult. So bottom line is, we have a lot to learn, a lot to do, and a lot to get really good at. And oh, by the way, our customers' expectations of us are changing dramatically. So, we've kind of said, we now believe insanely great equals the new good enough. And now it comes down to, if you can figure out how to be successful with that, you'll be the predator. If you don't, you'll be the prey. So, I know everyone probably has some familiarity with the customer journey. Is that term something you guys are all familiar with and worked with? Okay. Anybody?
Can you go over that if you don't mind?
I will, as a matter of fact. So, I want to start by telling a story. So, I was early in my career at Apple, and I worked for Steve. And I was the Apple II product manager, product marketing manager. And one day Steve came walking down the hallway, and he's carrying the shipping cart that we just spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make sure that it would work successfully and not have all the components of the machine get jiggled out as the UPS guys and the postal guys threw it, from doorstep to doorstep. And we were really proud of this. We put 3 months into this. And Steve comes into my office with this package, and I thought, he's going to tell us what a great job we did. He picks it up and he throws it on my desk. And he says, "Your out-of-the-box experience sucks." And I was smart enough to say, I didn't know what an out-of-the-box experience was. I knew what an out-of-body experience was right about then. But I asked, "Well, what do you mean by that?" So he reaches in his pocket, and he pulls out this beautiful little gift box. And he says to me, "When someone receives our product, it should feel to them like they're receiving an amazingly rare and precious gift." And he said, "That's the kind of feeling we want people to have about us and our products." And that was my first experience to, the customer journey is not just about marketing. Or maybe it's all about marketing, but it's really about every touch point that customer encounters and what you're conveying to them about what you care about, how much you care about them. So that to me was kind of the first step into the world of customer journey. So it's really the good, the bad, the ugly. It's everything that people experience about us and our products as we go to market. So one of the reasons we love the customer journey is because it really creates an amazingly powerful framework to go to market and to learn and to really, take a very customer-centric approach to what are we doing, what are we creating. Also, if designed right, it becomes a framework, if you will, for continual learning, collaboration with the customers, and innovation, because it's creating the sensory membrane that allows you to interact with the marketplace and your customer and learn from it, assuming you've constructed it correctly. If you do that, it gives you the ability to start transforming things from good to insanely great. So let's talk a little bit about the ROI part of the customer journey. So we'll run through these pretty quickly, but right now, if you're in the B2B space, your customers, the people who are trying to buy your product, have done 60% of their work evaluating, learning, gathering information before they ever talk to you. So that's all about content. What we're also starting to see as work starts to get done around nurturing campaigns and those kind of things is that those people who are really doing this work well are putting much bigger results on the board time and time again than the people who are not doing that. So there's real marketing ROI there. People who are doing what we call life cycle marketing, so a lot of us have been very front-end focused, like trying to get the customers in the door, and we lose sight of the customers we already have. Well, we all know the stats there. It's very expensive to go get new customers. So the people who are doing that work all the way through the life cycle of the customer are, again, putting big numbers up on the board. And the people who are kind of integrating all this are really starting to accelerate beyond the people that aren't. So from our perspective, there's a real compelling business reason to be making investments in this. So we think we're at an inflection point in the marketplace. All that technology coming in, we're actually starting to get a handle on the best practices as opposed to trying to just, go around in a dark room and figure things out. And what we think we're going to see this year is those best practices start to become mainstream. And by 2015, those are going to be embedded in how people go to marketplace. And if your organization isn't there, you know, you're going to be one of the prey as opposed to the predator. The other thing that's happening is we're changing the way we market and how we bring value to the marketplace through that process. Our customers' expectations about what they expect from us is changing dramatically as well. So that's why we think this is, the market is in an inflection point right now. So now let's talk about how to get to insanely great. So first thing up is it really takes a team. You know, we've seen several companies where it's like the marketing department's off here trying to work on their part, and you know, the product guys are doing something else, and the sales guys are doing something else. What we really want to do is create this seamless experience, right? Where that, you know, the experience becomes the brand, whether we like it or not. So it really takes a team. And, you know, quote from Steve here, you know, every good product I've seen is a result of people who cared passionately about what they were doing. And they wanted to create something that was exciting for them. So I'd encourage people, you know, take that mindset as you go in here. But bring the rest of these folks in. And I really believe that we would serve ourselves incredibly well if we took some of the user experience design guys that we have that build products for us and say, could you go look at our customer journey, right? Walk through it and tell me what's working and what's not from a design perspective. I think we'd see some amazing changes start to take place really quickly. But all these people have got insight, particularly the ones that have been out there working with customers. Those are the ones you want as a part of this team.
Can you define customer journey? Are you talking before the purchase decision or the entire journey?
The entire journey. So it's everything from actually even before they realize they have a problem and need a solution to the time they've decided they no longer want to be your customer. So that entire aspect. So the other people that need to be a part of this team are the customers. Right? And you'd be surprised how willing they are to actually hold up their hands and help guide you in defining and refining what you're doing out there as part of the customer journey. Next thing is it takes vision. You have to be beyond where the marketplace is. And yes, you want to listen to customers, but some of the greatest things have been created because technologists who knew what they could do, right, got together with people who had a better understanding of what the customer's needs were. And by blending those and creating a vision for where they wanted to go, they could lead the market and lead the customers. So we think that creating an insanely great customer journey really means being able to understand, see, and act in the world differently. And that means getting inside of your customers in a way that other people haven't, to see their world and their needs differently. So by doing that, it allows you to transport customers from an experience like this. You go into the Radio Shack store or whatever and buy an iPhone or a phone, to the kind of experience that Apple created. I mean, we don't think about buying phones the way we used to anymore because of that. So I really want you to get in that transformative mindset for a second. So first question is, as you do this work, have you ever opened a door and all of a sudden found yourself in some place totally magical? It really kind of changes your perception of what's important in life. Or have you ever heard someone speak who forever changed how you see the world? Or have you experienced something that transported you beyond what you could possibly conceive in your own imagination? So those are all part of a customer journey. And, that's the kind of insanely great we're talking about. So this is a really visceral, personal, emotive experience that you want to create for your customers. I borrowed a quote here, or some lyrics from Van Morrison. It says, didn't I come to bring you a sense of wonder? Didn't I come to bring your fiery vision bright? That's what you want to help your customers do. You want to take their vision of what's possible and recreate it. You want to give them the incentive to step into that world of insanely great and show them how you can help them do that. And you know, there isn't a plan B here, right? Be insanely great. I mean, that's the commitment you need to make. So the other thing we talked about is it really is all about the customer. And I'll tell a couple of quick stories. So in my last company, we were building geo-analytic data visualization software. So if you're a marketing person and you want to know who's buying what product from you across what distribution channel in what area of the world, you know, this is stuff that would do that. If you were a law enforcement agency and you were trying to do crime mapping in San Francisco, this is software that would do that. And I was working with some rock stars. I mean, just absolute blow your socks off designers and developers. And this was my first experience to Agile. Though I'd had 20 years of product management, it was a very different thing working with an Agile team. And so what I found out was very quickly they were kind of running in front of me, and like always, they weren't necessarily willing to believe what I told them the requirements were. So this is where I think it's really important. You know, we've got a lot of analytics we're starting to build and have access to as marketers. But I'll tell these two stories for a reason. So I basically got frustrated. And I went to a chief of police who we built a really good relationship with. And I said, would you be willing to host our team out here for a week in your police department? And let me bring the 10 guys from our team, designers, developers, marketers, and so on. And he said, sure. He said, not only that, I'll make sure you get introduced to all the other police agencies in the area. So we spent a week in drug and gang squad meetings, out in doing patrol cards, out doing drug busts, sitting in the chief of police office staff while he's chewing people out for not getting stuff done, meeting with some of the community leaders the police had to work with, and so on. And the culmination of that was we actually got to go out on one of the most advanced SWOT training facilities in the world and go through a day of live fire and other stuff. So the team had a ball, but the bottom line is I didn't have to worry about contextually communicating to them what the requirements of that marketplace were anymore. They lived it. Then another one was we were doing a lot of work in the insurance world. And I brought a team into the claims processing center in the middle of one of the big storms out on the East Coast. And so they could see firsthand what it was like to be there and try to work in that environment. And all of a sudden the bells start to go off about what could create value for our customers. So I think as much as we want to rely on the analytics that we have, that kind of immersive experience, getting your team out there into the customer's world, really critical.
Good question. Had they just trusted you, would the result have been the same? You started this conversation by saying you were doing Agile.
No, it
and
wouldn't,
trust gap.
because all of a sudden,
Because
all of a sudden you got, not only that, you got 5 other really bright guys around you who see the world differently than you do, and you come back with that perspective. Plus, these guys are out there, they're sketching to the customer, they're saying, what about this, what about that? We would have never got that information just through me alone. So that's why I say this is a team sport. The other thing is that I just came back from doing some work with, one of the things that they were doing is they were working on their customer personas. And I very quickly noted that they weren't looking at any of the trends that were happening in terms of how people are gathering and using information. And so I just held my hand up and said, look, if you're going to do these personas, you have to be looking at the trends that are coming into the marketplace and how your customer behavior is changing. You can't just do your static personas based on these guys. So that's the other message, is we're moving way too fast in the market. We have to get out in front of it. So the other thing to think about in this world of personas is that, particularly in the world of B2B, it's not just one person. You know, there's the security guy, there's the compliance officer, there's the, whoever it happens to be. Those guys are all going to participate in the buying decision, and as we're building our approach to that marketplace, we have to include those guys. Okay, so every touch point counts. This is the customer journey. This is going to be a pretty rapid deal. The slides will be up on our website and other places so you can have this. But first thing, remember, it's the customer's journey, not yours, and you have to earn the right to be a part of it at every stage, right? And so what you have to do is say, what is it that they need from me to get through this next stage so they can clear the gate. As I said, it starts before the prospect knows they need a solution. That's called the status quo. Here's where you want to be bringing industry thought leadership that helps them change their perspective of the world. Some point, the boss is going to come in, something's changed in the industry or changed with that company, and now they're ready to take action. They're going to pull a team together. This is where you want to start focusing information and knowledge around their functional areas and issues. Now they're going to start to search for options. This is where you have to stand there as objectively as possible and help illuminate their thinking about the problem they're trying to solve. And help build a best practice framework for them to do those solution evaluations. Next, they're going to be evaluating alternatives. So right now we've got like online trials, all those kind of things. But really get in there and know who the influencers are going to be and what their requirements and needs are, and make sure that you're speaking to those. So, for example, one of the things we did in the software company I was a part of is I learned that unless I sat down and asked them, who's going to be responsible for this decision? What's the business outcome they're going to want to have from this solution, and what can we do to make sure that your trial is pulling that information in and demonstrating that? Basically we just blew out because they didn't get the core business value they want. So really, dig in and understand what's going to create value then. Next thing they're going to be doing is pulling together a business case. So if you've given them some objective ways to frame that business case out ahead of time, it's almost like being given the right to help them write that RFP. It's a good thing to do. Next is, when they're moving out of the business case phase into basically getting internal buy-in for what they've said they wanted to do. This is a time where they're going to get pinged from all the guys who have a different point of view or have specific needs. And right now you want to be really, really responsive and get specific information into the hands of those people and or your salespeople to deal with that. And then you're now into the purchase process. Guess what? The purchase process is messy. It's not somebody that just sits there and signs an order, right? You've got to go through legal, you've got to go through finance, you've got to go through a lot of things. And again, in that environment, making sure that you're in there with a win-win stance, making sure that you're flexible where it makes sense to be, and making sure that your salespeople ahead of time have been given some parameters to work in and know where they can be flexible, really important. And now you're into deployment of the solution. Here's where a lot of things go wrong. I watched when I was at Adobe, us end up in several litigations because what we promised we couldn't deliver. You know what? That's not where you want to be. So make sure that you've got something that's really well designed, really well communicated. And this is where I think marketing can play a major role, particularly if they're thinking very much from the customer's perspective. And then you're now into the deployment, where they're actually validating the value, i.e. they're using the solution. Again, this is where you want to stay on top of things. Make sure that you're understanding what's working. Did you deliver as promised? Were you there? Because you're always going to have problems, getting in there and fixing things. And have you set a framework up so that they're actually, remembering what value they said they wanted and validating whether or not they're getting it, because that will go a long way in kind of taking you to the next step, which is expanding their relationship with you and being able to refer you out to other people. So those are the stages of the customer journey. And why is this important? 89% of the customers were lost after a single negative customer experience, right? Big numbers. So back to marketing ROI, why you want to invest in this stuff, that's why. Outcome-based metrics, as you walk through these stages, and they'll be different for different products and so on, but you really want to make sure that you're defining the business outcome you want from each stage. Not only from your standpoint, but more importantly from the customer standpoint. What is it that they need to achieve, and can you track, are you helping them do that or not? Next is really stand back objectively and look at your customer journey and say, Is this helping or hurting us in terms of creating momentum and value in the marketplace? Because the bottom line is it's the weakest link that's going to cost you. And all the money and effort you put into some of those other things, if you've got some place where you're breaking down, guess what happens to all that money? It goes nowhere, right? It's lost. So this is where you really want to dig in and get objective. So the deep dive assessment, very quickly. It starts with how well do you know your customer and their needs and the influencers associated with those customers at each stage of that journey. Second deep dive is how well does the content that you're providing and the experience you're providing them support those needs at each stage in the journey. Then, do you have the analytics and the voice of the customer in place at each stage of that journey so you know whether what you're doing there is helping or hurting, and is it creating value for your customer or is it not? And you know what? We're getting more and more tools that allow us to do that. So because this is an area where it really sheds insight into did this brochure do anything for us? Did this training course that we offered accomplish anything for us? Did this trial help us or not? Those are the questions you can start to answer with that. So the next thing is we've got all this technology out there today that allows us to automate things. So you've heard of marketing automation, integrated marketing systems, social media management, all those things. This is where all this stuff comes to play because anything that we can do in an automated way, we talked about A and B testing and the other stuff before, anything we can do to automate that makes it easier for us to be successful and to create some good value for our customers and for the companies we work for. And the last thing is...
One quick question.
Yep.
Analytics and voice of customer analytics, is that things like surveys and...
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other component of this is, do we know what our expectations are of what is going to happen in each one of these stages? No worries. And are we doing? Do we know what the risk profiles look like? If we're starting to lose somebody, do we know what the earmarks are of starting to lose somebody at that stage are? And do we have mechanisms in place to try to counteract that? So that's a deep dive assessment that we think you ought to do on a customer journey. When you're done, you'll have basically a heat map that says, the red areas we're probably not doing so well in. Maybe the blue we're doing really well in. But you really want to have that perspective of the customer journey, of your current customer journey. And the reason for that again is to identify where those weak links are, because that's what's going to break the customer's relationship with you. So, get agile. There's a lot to do here. And you can't take this whole thing on all at once. I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory at all. You've got to start with, where is there the greatest opportunity for me to create business momentum in this customer journey? Let me start there. All right? What did I learn from that? What's next? All right? What's next? So that's called Get Agile. We've talked about it throughout here. More and more people are becoming familiar with this. We think this is a must-do. For those of you, how many people are familiar with Agile? Okay, so I won't go through this a lot, but basically, it starts with knowing what that framework is for the overall customer journey, knowing the work that you need to do, and then identifying your first priorities and going for it. Lock those into time-bound sprints, come back and say, what did we learn? Okay, how's that going to change our overall vision for what we need to do, and how's that going to change the work we're going to do in the next sprint? Again, what I heard in the last session, don't focus on tasks, focus on business outcomes. So prioritize work based on the business outcome it's going to produce for you. And we think that starts with saying, what customer value is this going to create? How much of a difference is this going to create out there? Not just to one or two customers, or because now I can have something cool in my marketing portfolio, but is it really going to create significant value for most of our customers? That's priority number one. And then urgency to complete, comes down to, are there other things that, if this doesn't get done, aren't going to get done, so we should prioritize that higher. And then we believe that as much as Agile is important on an individual level, you really want to start over time shifting your company to this so that their strategy and their vision is aligned with Agile values and principles. That they're really focused on delivering customer value. That the culture and leadership supports that. That the people in the organizations are structured to work that way. And that the processes that you have in place are really kind of Agile oriented, and that the systems and tools that you have in place are really designed to support that. So that's kind of a longer term effort, but you want to be conscious of that as you're doing this work. So with all that said, you guys know this one, right? You still got to keep it simple, including getting it to click. So this is not a boil the ocean strategy, right? So what is important is to understand that overall framework and the interdependencies across there. What is also important is don't try to do the whole thing at once. I love this quote from Steve because it's so true. Simple is harder than complex. So this is a complex concept that we've talked about here, but it's by looking at that whole that allows you to get down to what are the few things we can do right now today that are going to make a big difference. And and focus on those. So as you lay out your roadmap for this, keep it simple, right? But keep that framework in mind. Again, go for insanely great. Because Steve used to always hit us, hard about if you're not going to do something that's totally awesome, you're wasting your time. Don't do it, right? So what you want to be looking for in that framework is points of innovation. Right? Where can you change the game in the marketplace? Change the game for the customer. And then the last point is validate what you're doing. Are you or are you not creating incremental business value for your customer first and then for your company? And then the last one is you get to start all over because this is ongoing. The influx of new technology, the influx of new business models, the influx of new marketing methodologies and new marketing technologies is not going to stop. So you can't just go create your customer journey and call it a day, right? We think there ought to be teams dedicated to doing nothing but evolving this customer journey through continual learning and innovation. The bottom line is keep going. Each one of these things that you do is going to increase your velocity. It's going to increase your effectiveness as a marketing team. So keep doing it. So bottom line is, got to do it. Got to work from real innovative, inspired vision. It really is all about the customer. Every one of those touch points counts. Get agile, keep it simple, validate the value. That's the key messages. So I think the other summary here is really sit back and think about how can I create this incredibly precious and valuable gift for my customer? How can I do something that's going to rock their world and change the way they think about their job and our relationship to it? That's the mindset that you want to approach this from. So there's a lot more information on this up at our website. We'll get this presentation posted up there so that you guys can have access to that. Since I want to practice what we preach, scale of 1 to 10, was this valuable for you guys?
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay. And what held the greatest value? Okay, I have to start picking people if nobody puts their hands up. So.
I like the stories that you used in order to emphasize your points.
Okay. Anything new or different here?
I like the roadmap and the table, the evaluation. I forget the actual name of it, but the journey and then how to evaluate it and come up with the heat map.
Okay.
It's a tool.
All right. What could I improve?
I think it's a great presentation. I was just, if you had time for more examples, that would have been one place where,
Okay, good.
I think there's a lot of content, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
the
lot of content.
deep dive assessment, that's what I really like too, and I was just like, wait, I don't know if I caught all of that for those pieces, but.
Okay, thank you. And what was missing? Anything missing?
What's the best way to recognize where a person is in their consumer journey?
where they are?
Yeah,
So for us to recognize or for the customer?
for us to recognize the message accordingly.
Yeah, so it'll be a little different for everybody, and I think that's where getting involved with the customer and really understanding what's happening with them as they go through that process and engage with the content or the experiences that you're providing them will help. And just know that it's not a straight line, right, at all. I mean, something could come in and they'll go back to square one, or they'll jump ahead to, square 8. So that's always a little tough to figure out. So you kind of have to get a norm put together and then go from there. But good question.
I could give a part of the answer to that. Traditional market research would do surveys and focus groups. But the former head of innovation at Procter & Gamble, where a lot of this stuff started, he would go out and spend 40 hours with 5 people, just watching what they do. And that's how you begin to understand where they are in that whole buying cycle, the whole customer journey.
I wanted to just make a comment to what you asked. I think that if you're in an online business, there's a real danger to assume you know where they are in the journey based on the behavior. I'm speaking from personal experience. I love to download white papers. I just save a lot of white papers. But I'm not in the buying cycle yet. There's an assumption on that phone call I get immediately or that email I get that is very presumptuous. So I think we as marketers need to be careful about what we assume based on a click, So there needs to be something more there where maybe the customer's more in control of telling me where I am or something.
Or we're better, yeah, so I'm thinking
But
exactly.
that's just a comment
Yeah,
on
no,
that
that's what,
challenge.
like, I work in advertising, that's what we struggle with
All
all
the
the time, is
time.
where we have some people that we're trying to get them to decide to go
Right.
do this, and some people we're trying to give them an offer to go do
Right,
this,
right.
because they're ready to do it, but how do you know where someone is?
Yeah, it's a really.
Yeah, it's a really good, it is a real challenge, and I'm just thinking personal experience is that I did a lot of research to pull all this stuff together. Because behind this is about 175 pages of methodology to go do this work, right?
Right.
But I did a lot of what you did. I started to pull down a lot of white papers and other stuff, and there's this one company, I'm not going to mention names, but I've told them, I said, look, I did this because I'm researching the subject. Right? I get a phone call from their salesperson every 2 weeks, and it's like, it'll be a different salesperson,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, look, I told you guys, I don't know, look, I've been in sales, you're wasting your time with me, I'm
It's
trying to tell you that,
It's the
right?
dark side of CRM, I
Yeah.
think,
So,
right?
yeah. So other questions?
Can I give you an example of an awesome, I had an insanely great thing happen
Yeah.
that I immediately thought of when you said that. I opted out of an email. I do this all the time because I signed up for all these white papers, right? And I'm starting to realize I need to put them all in e-reader or something else. I can't get all these email newsletters. So I opt out all the time, and they're usually these really ugly, you unsubscribe things. But I unsubscribed from HubSpot's emails, who I like as a marketing company, and I may be a customer for them in the future, because I do marketing automation stuff. And they had the funniest opt-out video on the page. It's like,
That's too funny.
oh, what did we do wrong? We messed up. Oh, we're so sorry. It was hysterical. I wrote them a note. I said, don't worry, I'll follow your blog.
That's great.
It was an example of that, I think, of knowing that was appropriate for that time, and I'll never forget it, and I'll think of them next time.
That's
So,
great, I love that
It was really
one.
good.
I was going to say, as you mentioned that, another one of my favorites, I don't know, how many of you guys know Marketo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so have you downloaded their white papers and stuff?
Yeah, they call
I mean,
them.
they are awesome, right?
Very
And they're not like this other company, which is like, I think they've got a lot of touch points to know what I'm about, right?
Mhm.
And the first qualification is how big is your business? You have to forget it.
You can just download
Yeah,
the white papers.
you'll come
for
to
our
us when
content.
you need it, but if you guys haven't had a chance to check out their stuff and their campaign approach, I mean, there's an example, I think, of people who are really doing it right.
Did you say Marketo?
Marketo.
Nobody knows
Okay.
how to say it. Mark
Oh,
down.
Marketo.
You say Marketo, I say
Marketo.
Marketo. So, other questions?
McAdoo.
thoughts, inspirations? So what's the first thing you're gonna do when you get home about this? Go for the deep dive?
Can you go back to the previous slide? I'm sorry, I missed that URL.
Maybe?
Please.
We'll put this on our website at spicecatalyst.com/marketingcampsf.
So you just tell me when I'm there.
The one that has the website.
Which one?
The
Oh, the
web-
webs, oh, you
yeah.
want that, sorry.
Your contact, yeah,
Yeah, that one.
that one. Okay.
Have you seen the McKinsey's like consumer decision journey that
Yeah,
they did a
yes.
couple of years ago?
Yeah,
So I really like that. I don't know if it's probably just a visual thing because I think that really.
that's the one that's kind of the loose.
Right, it's
yeah.
a loop because the consumer is constantly thinking about, purchasing. It's not about we go from a purchase funnel from the top to the bottom and then we end, or even, it's a line. I think it might be a visual thing, but I think that's what's really important to keep in mind is that when you are in the market for something, you don't just kind of stop at one point. Like
Right.
you continuously, there's an opportunity to continuously market to them, and just because they fall off your purchase funnel in the top doesn't mean that they don't come back.
Right,
So like I think that's also something that people like miss opportunities in terms of, remarketing or targeting them or having a different conversation with them. Almost like there's a reason that they dropped off. So I would visit that if you guys are interested in.
yeah, I totally agree,
purchase
I love that.
journeys.
And I went into, I
It's
took
by
this down a
McKinsey, it's called
level.
the Consumer Decision Journey, CDJ.
Yeah, we looked at that when we put this together, and it's missing
Yeah.
some spots.
Well,
That's why Mike did the circle.
Yeah,
But also I really tried to gear this towards what I experienced trying to sell stuff into a corporate environment.
yeah, I was
right?
gonna say the CDJ is very consumer
Yeah,
focused and this
yeah.
is very
Yeah.
B2B, so I think it depends on what you definitely, yeah.
Our focus
But-
is B2B.
But I love that, and I totally agree, so that was the
McKinsey,
yeah, that's it, if you guys haven't seen that one, go check it out.
yeah, it's a great report too.
I mean, I think the elephant in the room with this really is the alignment and the culture and the leadership issues.
Fair
I
enough.
mean, if you're in a place in the org chart and, there's so much you can do, but then you start getting pushback, and so then you realize, let me just optimize where I am. And anyway, so I just wanted to.
Well, I'm going to relate, because I did, prior to this product company I was in, I did work for two different companies that were, we were software guns for hire, right? We did big bore enterprise commercial software, particularly that was web-based and so on. So we started to kind of sneak Agile into our engagements with customers because we ran up against many cultures that were just not there. And so we didn't even, we deliberately never said the word Agile. So it was kind of like guerrilla tactics, but we just said, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And in your meeting, we talked about how you set up the budget for these things. Well, the bottom line is we had to work against budgets. But the customers always felt they could get more without having to put any more budget on the table. So we also found that Agile was a very powerful way to get them to make those decisions, because we'd set up, okay, here's what we think we can do with this, here's things that we don't think we can do, and here's things we might be able to get to. You pick, right? So I think if you've got a culture that is just kind of going to roll their eyes sideways at this, one, you might be working for the wrong company. But two, I think there are ways that you can not just take this head on. You start to build kind of a cadre of people that start to demonstrate business results from this without ever saying the word Agile or customer journey for that matter. So some thoughts. But you're right, I think the biggest barrier to this kind of thing is the culture. Totally agree. More questions?
And to enhance your customer journey, we'll adjourn early so you can get downstairs and get lunch before everybody else.
Okay.